Hello, I'm Toycat and welcome back to the video. Today I have some face cam for you all, as you've probably already worked out from the fact that there's a Toycat over here, or at least someone that's killed me, taken over my channel, and that sounds roughly like Toycat. But yeah, either way, today I wanted to talk about some advice actually, because I made a video like this roughly a month ago now as a fun opportunity to just kind of talk over something that doesn't necessarily relate too much to gameplay, and I spoke about some bad advice that really does quite work out, and a lot of people really enjoyed that video. I had a lot of fun making it, and people asked, why not do the opposite, Toycat? Why not talk about some good advice that really doesn't work? And you know, there's so many examples of this in life that I figured I had to talk about at least a few of them, and that's what I'm doing with today's video. Hopefully you all do enjoy it. Like the video if you do, because it helps out the channel a lot and lets know you do like this sort of stuff. And I guess it also, you know, feeds the wife and kids, and you know, realistically, when people say like the video, they're saying, you know, it sends YouTube the positive signal that yes, this video was good and maybe you should recommend it to other people. And obviously, as people who make a living from this stuff, that's a pretty important thing. Now you know the truth, the curtain's been unveiled. But yeah, with that said, let's get straight into the first piece of good advice, that actually doesn't really work, and it is the age-old saying of like everything in moderation. If you haven't heard that yet, basically it means that you shouldn't overdo everything, because a lot of people, you know, I'll give this advice to a bunch of people anyway, because if you're doing lots of one thing, whether that's like drugs or food or really anything in life, there are very few things where you can dedicate your whole life to it and it be a good idea. Even if you work, you know, all day every day, that's gonna burn you out. If you spend all day playing video games, you know, that's a good idea actually, but you know, if you spend all day doing most things, it's gonna burn you out and it's a bad idea. So the phrase goes, everything in moderation. And like I said, I think it's good advice if you're, you know, you're kind of broken and you're doing one thing all day every day. But if you already have a fair amount of variety in there, I think everything in moderation can be a really bad piece of advice that can have the opposite effect. And if you're curious as to what I mean by that, I like to do everything to excess, just rarely. So I guess this is like moderate excess, so maybe it's like making the advice good again. But basically, so for instance, you know, everything in moderation means that you should be like, oh yeah, well I'm going to Five Guys, which is an excellent place for burger and fries. I really sound like I'm sponsored sometimes, but I just like Five Guys. But, you know, I'm going to Five Guys, and because, you know, oh, it looks like actually, have you ever looked up the nutrition on them? If you eat like a large, you know, fries, it's something like, it's some ungodly number of calories that's like, you know, that's probably like a meal and a half by themselves. Let's just order the fries, because moderation, or like, you know, let's only get, you know, like the tiniest burger with no burger buns and just the burger bun. You know, if you do that sort of stuff, it's going to be like, well, this isn't even having fun at this point. Whereas what I like to do is I like to go every now and then and be like, oh, I'm totally going to do this okay, and then I just like go crazy on it. So, you know, if you go to Five Guys, buy yourself the milkshake, you know, the Oreo peanut butter, like put some bacon bits in there. Buy yourself the double bacon, oh, it's not even called the double bacon cheeseburger. Get yourself the bacon, you know, cheeseburger, which is actually the giant double one. Go all the way on the toppings. Put all of them in there. Put barbecue and mayonnaise on there. Really good idea, by the way. Go all the way over the top when you do something like that, and then you'll be like, oh, that was kind of a bad idea afterwards, and then you won't do it for a while. That's what I really think is good about excess. If you can like moderate your excesses, then you can make it better than doing everything a little bit. Because again, if you go to Five Guys and just order a little bit every time, that's not so great. But if you go and you just, you know, you go all out, but once a month or once every couple of months, that's kind of a good thing. And you know, honestly, when you think about it, like if you look at the, again, mostly American-sized drinks, but if you look at an American-sized drink, you're like, wow, that's basically a meal in itself. You can't just, you know, you can't just have a drink for dinner. That's no fun. Go just all the way, realize it was a bad idea, and then use that as your excuse to stop. And that's really how I do a lot of things. That's how I make videos. Like I binge through, or not binge through, but like I'll just play and just do non-stop stuff for like, let's call it 6 hours in a row, and I'm like, yeah, that was a lot. Let's take a tiny break now, and then I want to come back into it really hard when I'm next to it. Whereas, you know, if people are just like, oh yeah, let's only do this thing for an hour at a time, or you know how video games always say, oh, you've been playing for 40 minutes, you better stop. No, that's not a good idea. I'm going to play for 8 hours until my eyes hurt, and then I'll realize that your eyes hurt when you play too long. And I'm just saying, you can learn a lot of lessons by not doing them in moderation. Pro tip, unless it's like the really bad stuff that'll destroy your life. I think moderation is like a bad thing in and of itself, and it's only really good advice if you have problems of doing everything too much anyway. So, first bad piece of good advice that doesn't really work. And I quite like the opposite bit of that, sorry about that, but yeah, let's talk about the second one now, which is to do with dreams, I guess, because you'll always hear people talk about how like, oh yeah, sharing your dreams is a really, really good idea because, you know, there's like secret meanings in there. But the thing is, dream stories, 95% of them, at least that I've heard or that I would ever try to tell, because I've accidentally made the mistake of like, oh yeah, let's talk about dreams because like, I feel like this is a cool thing. Dreams are something that only makes sense to you because it's made inside your head from your memories, your places, etc. So if you ever try to describe dreams to someone, it's always a boring thing. It's like, oh yeah, I was at this airport that looked a little bit like, you know, a cross between Stockholm Skavatska and like, you know, like London Heathrow, and whoa, wasn't that correct? I'm just going to make up random details from my own life that none of you find interesting. And oh yeah, there was this girl that looked a bit like that person you haven't met, and that stranger I once saw who gave me a Burger King. You know, if you just combine lots of details like that, someone's just like, ah, this is really interesting, Andrew. Tell me more about how you fell off the cliff, but it turned out you didn't. Wow, this is really fun. No one wants to hear about your dreams. I would say there's like 1 in 100 dreams that are actually worth telling, and that's usually if it involves the person, that's if something goes fun. But I think in general, you know, good advice is like, oh yeah, talk about your dreams, share the inside meanings and stuff. No, your dreams probably do have some deep meaning in there, but talking about them like as if they're an interesting thing, bad idea. Bad. I don't know why this is bad, but yeah, bad idea, don't do it. So another one is actually just be honest with people in general, and I know this sounds awful to say, don't be honest with people, and I think honesty is really important, and I think in my life, like, there was a point where I was just like, I'm going to try and be as honest as humanly possible, but you realize when you do that, when you just try to tell everyone 100% the truth, people don't like the truth, because so many people have convinced themselves, or either they've convinced, I don't know, you know, there's lots of situations people have convinced themselves that, oh yeah, these lies are all the truth, and what's all this coming in here, or there's situations where like, oh yeah, if a homeless person says, hey, do you have any money? You don't want to be like, oh yeah, I do have money, but not for you, actually. Like, you just say, oh, don't have any money, sorry. And it's more polite for both of you. Like, if it is a short-term interaction and you won't see each other afterwards, I think there's almost a goodness in line. Like, I'd say telling the truth is important, but only if you know the person, because if you're just passing by someone, you're just going to give them a really negative impression. Like, if someone just, you know, stops on the street right now and says, what do you think of me, honestly? Just give them a compliment. It's way better than saying, you smell a little bit, and I think your hair looks like a, you know, something offensive. You know, that even if that's true, that's not useful to them. Whereas, you know, if you just give them a compliment, they'll be happy about their day, and life will improve. So, being honest with people is really good advice, and I recommend it for, like, genuine interpersonal relationships. But I've said this before about, like, so many situations you have to lie, and life expects you to lie. It's bizarre. I don't get it at all. It's confusing. Like, you know, so sometimes, you know, when something wrong happens, like customer service people will like ask you to lie about what happened, and it's like, but why do we have to pretend? But that's a thing in life that you have to do. You have to lie sometimes, and people want you to lie to them a lot of the time, which is confusing. It's mind-boggling, but it's something that is true. Good advice. Be honest with people. Doesn't really work all the time. You gotta like have an honesty filter that you like flip on and off, I think. But yeah, I'd recommend, like, again, in all real interpersonal relationships to be honest. But most relationships aren't like that, are they? But yeah, as I said, let's move on to the final thing, the really bad, but I guess the good advice, which makes a lot of sense on the surface a lot of the times, but sometimes it's really bad because it can be misconstrued, is I guess it's the age-old advice, or maybe I've heard it a bunch, of like, oh yeah, the best way to, you know, start a relationship is to be friends with them before you date them. And you're like, that makes a lot of sense, because yeah, if you're friends, then you'll be best buds and stuff, and then that'll just happen into a cute relationship or whatever. And I feel like that has a lot more truth in the adult world, at least in my personal experience. But like when I was in school, that piece of advice is like the first thing you unlearn and you realize, wow, that makes things a lot better, easier, etc. Because if you just try to be friends with people that you know, if that is your intention for stuff, then what you're in reality, you know, going to end up doing is you're going to end up in a situation where, you know, like, that you're just, like, doing friendly stuff and you've got a bunch of friends and stuff. And I feel like the only reason that actually, you know, works as an idea is because there's actually, like, some implied, like, half friendship in there. Like, so, like, oh, yeah, well, we're friends, but we both kind of know what this is really built towards or whatever. Like, the advice itself of, like, be friends with someone before dating them has, like, its roots in truth. But if you just take it as, like, literal, like, that's how you make stuff happy, then you're going to be in a bad situation. And I just figured I should mention that right now. If the best way to do something is to have your intentions either be clear or semi-clear, or like the tiniest bit clear, depending on how like you view all of those words. I feel like even that advice is terrible in itself. I feel like anything when it comes to dating, actually, any piece of advice to do with the opposite gender, to do with, again, relationships, to do with dating, so any of that stuff, most of it you should take with the biggest grain of salt in the world, because it all works for someone. But the key tip actually about any advice in the world, right, is that everyone is different. You might not, you know, going back to the first point, you might not like Five Guys. You might think that going there and, you know, chugging an Oreo peanut butter milkshake every, you know, month or so and then feeling sick, you might think that's a bad idea. You might be allergic to peanut butter or Oreos or something. That would make it a very bad idea, or lactose intolerant. But I feel like the broad strokes on all of these are that they're good ideas for some people, but that you should, if you take everything you hear with the tiniest bit of grain of salt and you evaluate it, apply it to your own life experiences, then you might just be better off. And you know what, that's a beautiful point to end today's video on. I hope you did all enjoy it. like the video if you did, because I think I went through this earlier actually. Share the review if you liked it, and subscribe if you're new around here, because I make videos like this one every single day on my channel, and if subscribed, you'll see them daily on your homepage. One more thing before I go, I've been meaning to make, so I painted this, well, I didn't paint, I got this ball painted blue off my office studio thing, just so I could like blue screen my face out, but because it's glossy blue, like light reflects on it in a really weird way, so I'm gonna work out what that is, because even when like, well actually one sec, I'm gonna shut like, one sec. See, it's a little bit less glossy now, but like every light has the same reflection, so it's not a solid surface. So if you're curious as to like why I didn't blue screen myself out, it's something I'm working on. I need to get like a solid light at the exact right angle, I think. There's a lot of things that I have to work on for this, like, even if I turn on this light, it just creates the same problem but up there instead. Maybe what I just need to do is have like lights turned on everywhere, and that's the solution. I don't know, but it is a thing being worked on. I'm not an idiot, I know I could blue screen that. It's just too much for color for it to work properly. Anyway, I hope you did all enjoy today's video. Do all the things I just said if you want to. If you don't want to, I don't know. What do you want to just like sit here and look at each other until one of us does something? That works for me. F9.